Today's lesson is going to focus on credit cards. First few slides just focus on some of the terminology. So you'll see words like a cash advance, a down payment. We'll talk about credit or a finance charge. Okay, we get into the actual definitions here. Credit is an agreement in which a borrower receives something of value and agrees to pay for it later. Okay, so if you have like a $500 limit on your credit card, technically that's not your own money, it's money that you borrowed. Okay, yes, you can spend it, but you have to pay it back. And the catch with credit cards is they typically have high interest rates so that the bank can get more money out of you. If you max out a $500 credit card, the bank would prefer that you just continuously make the minimum payment, where it would be more beneficial for you as the owner of the card or the purchaser to just pay the $500 off right away, because then you won't get charged the interest. Cash advance. If you have a credit card, you can actually go to the bank machine, put your credit card into the bank machine, and take money out or withdraw funds from the credit card. Now again, technically it's not your money. It's not like your debit card. If I go to the bank and I take out $50, all right, it's my money. It comes off my debit card, it comes out of my account. All that happens is there's $50 less in my account. But if I take $50 out of the credit card or off the credit card, what happens? Interest starts running. Okay? And with a cash advance, interest is usually calculated from the day of the withdrawal. There's no like grace period like there is with purchases. So you are charged interest right away. So a little word of advice, if at all possible, avoid withdrawing funds from your credit card. Okay, use it for purchases and pay it off. Pay the balance off quickly. A down payment. We'll talk more about loans and down payments and trade-ins a little later on. But a down payment is a partial payment sometimes required at the time of purchase. Like if you're going to purchase a home or if you're going to purchase a car, a lot of times people have a down payment. For purchasing a home, there's a required down payment, a minimum. Okay. A finance charge, that's the total amount of interest paid to borrow a sum of money. So if you borrow $1,000, but you have to pay back $1,200, the finance charge on the loan would be $200. Know this, that if you borrow money from the bank, it's not like borrowing it from your mom or your dad. Like if I borrow 20 bucks from dad, I just give dad 20 bucks back when I see him. All right. That could be a month from now or a year from now. I'll be like, oh, I owe you 20 bucks. And my dad will be like, okay, thanks. Way to go. Appreciate that. But if you borrow a sum of money from the bank and you don't pay them back for a year, it's not like, okay, I borrowed $1,000 from the bank and I walk in a year later and I just give them $1,000 back and everything's cool. What happens? Interest, that's right. The bank is going to make money off that loan. Credit card lingo. So these are some things that you would see on your credit card statement. Most of this is done online now. Some folks continue to receive paper copies of their credit card statement. But what it would show on your credit card statement, or if you go to your online banking, it would show you the credit limit. That's the maximum amount of money you can borrow. Remember, it's credit. It's borrowed money. It's not your money. That credit, that $500 limit, it would be money that you're borrowing. Do you have to spend all of the $500 on your credit card? No. Okay. Maybe you only use it to purchase something worth 40 bucks. That would mean that there's still $460 of available credit. So the credit limit is the maximum amount of credit that a financial institution or other lender, so it doesn't have to be a bank, okay, will extend. Minimum payment. Okay, this is what the bank wants. The bank wants you to just continuously make the minimum payment and carry a large balance. Why? The bigger the balance you're carrying, the more interest they're going to get from you. It's the amount of money the user must pay in order to retain usability of the credit card. What happens if a user or the owner of a credit card doesn't make their minimum payments? What could the bank do? Yeah, they could cancel the card. They like next time you go to use it, it wouldn't be functional. The charge would come up, or if you tapped it or tried to purchase something, it would say insufficient funds, or it would say something to the effect that your card is no longer active. An annual fee. Annual is every year, usually ranging from $15 to $300. So $15 for the most basic. Some of you now probably have a credit card that has no annual fee. So the advantage of no annual fee is you don't have to pay for it. Okay. The advantage of having like some people say, well, why would you want a $300 annual fee? Why would I want to pay $300 for my credit card? The bigger the payment you have, the bigger the annual fee, the more perks or the more incentives that come with your credit card. Could be traveler's insurance or all sorts of little protections from fraudulent, like if you lost your card or something, or perhaps you get air miles or rewards points or some sort of benefit that would come with the annual fee. And that annual fee is just there to charge, it's charged by the credit card company for the convenience of the credit card. Not all credit cards have an annual fee. Some of the most basic, like if any of you students in the room have one, you're probably running a credit card with no annual fee. Interest is not charged on your credit card if you pay the balance every month. Put a star beside this. If you want to effectively or properly use a credit card, you should use it to make your purchases, but make sure that the balance is paid off by the end of the month. Okay? It's nice to have a credit card, for you especially, a credit card with a small credit limit, so like maybe a $500 limit or a $250 limit, so that you can't get into like a whole lot of debt and a whole lot of interest building up. If you have a $250 limit, okay, and you have a job, use your credit card to make your purchases and then pay it off, and you won't get charged any interest. But if you have like a credit card with like a $5,000 limit, it's easy to make the mistake and think, oh, I have $5,000. And you go and you buy all these nice new clothes or a new iPhone or a new video game or something like this, and you run up a big bill, and then you're like, oh, I owe $5,000. I don't have $5,000. What do I do? Well, then you get in the situation where you're constantly making these minimum payments, and the balance is unpaid, and the credit card company or the bank continuously charges you interest, and they just kind of bleed you with interest payments. Long story short, when you have a credit card, pay off the balance. A purchase. Interest is calculated only if the balance of the credit card has not been paid by the due date. So if you make a purchase and you pay it off by the due date or by the end of the month, then you won't be charged any interest. But if you make several purchases and you don't pay off the balance by the end of the month, you would be charged interest on the full amount. So say you racked up $400 in charges for the month and you made a payment of $300, that means your balance would be $100, but you're actually going to get charged interest on the full $400. So make sure you pay the full amount off. And if you're not sure what the full amount is, you can check your statements, you can check your online banking, and it would tell you. So make a little note of this. This is a catch too. This is where people get caught up. If you don't pay the full balance, Interest is calculated from the date of each purchase. A cash advance. So what's a cash advance? It's not like tapping your credit card to make a purchase where you receive goods. A cash advance is walking into the bank machine, throwing your credit card into the ATM, and withdrawing funds. With a cash advance, interest is calculated starting the day of the withdrawal. There's no grace period. So you don't have a month to pay off the balance. You're charged interest right from the day you withdraw the money. So long story short there, it's best to just take money out of your debit card. That's money you have that you worked for and you've earned. It's in your bank account. Don't make cash advances or don't take money out of the bank machine using your credit card because you're going to get charged interest. Here are some questions or some typical interest questions. That's why we moved into credit cards, because we're talking about interest. The last few days, we started with simple interest. I is equal to P times R times T, where I is the interest, P is the principal. It's the amount you invest or borrow. In this case, we're borrowing money when we're talking about a credit card. R is the rate. It's the interest rate expressed as a decimal. So take the percentage, divide it by 100. That'll give you the decimal. And T is the time in years. So you'll notice that in this situation, what's the unit of time they have? It's not 25 years. What does it say in this question? 25 days. What do we do with the 25 days? And divide by 365. If it's months, we divide it by 12. Okay? When it comes to calculating interest and minimum payment, okay, there's some terminology we're going to look at here. And know that the credit card just uses simple interest. So the unpaid balance, this represents the amount borrowed. It's the principal. This right here represents the R value, and this right here represents the T value. When it comes to calculating interest, the simple interest formula from last week, I equals P times R times T. Make sure that T is in years. And make sure that R is a decimal. When I go to fill this in, I is going to equal. What should I fill in for P? $642. That's how much money I borrowed or spent on my credit card. I'm going to multiply that by R. What is the interest rate? Notice the interest rates on your credit cards. It's 19.95%. They're usually in that neighborhood of 20%. That's a pretty substantial interest rate. You would want to see this if you were investing money. 20% return to be unreal. What would that be as a decimal? 20% is not ideal when you're borrowing money either. 19.95%, swing the decimal place 2 spots to the left, gives me 0.1995. And what did you say I had to do to the 25 days? Divided by 365. Now, easiest thing to do is just to pump this all into your calculator. Go top by top by top, and then divide by 365. What do you get? What does the interest equal? What is 642 times 0.1995 multiplied by 25 and then divided by 365? Anyone know? 877. So it's 8.772534. All this trash, we're going to round to the nearest cent. And what do I put on this? I'm going to hide this thing right here because before I calculate my minimum payment, I actually want to figure out what my new balance is. Whoa, wrong shape. There we go. So that's the interest, $8.77. Not that big of a deal. But notice that's only after 25 days. Okay? When you get into some pretty substantial unpaid balances, and the more time goes on, you'll get into some pretty wild and ridiculous interest payments. Next thing we're going to figure out is the new balance. So how do I calculate the new balance? To get the new balance, I take the principal and I add the interest. What was the principal? How much did I owe? $642. And I'm going to add the interest. What's the interest? $8.77. That's what we found in step one. So what's my new balance? New balance is equal to $650.77. Is that fair? Now, when it comes to the minimum payment, all credit cards are different, but they have similar setups. In this situation, the minimum payment, if I go back up and look, it says 5% or $10, whichever is greater. Now, this 5%, put a little note, this is 5% of the unpaid balance. Sorry, of the new balance. So how would I figure out what 5% of my new balance is? What's the new balance? It's 5% of the new balance, and Lisa just said that that is 650.77. So I know that this number is 650.77. How do I do 5% of that? What does of mean? Multiply. And what's 5% as a decimal? 0.05. What's this going to equal? What's 0.05 times 650.77? I got $32.54. $32.54. Now it's either that number, $32.54, or $10. And it says whichever number is greater. What's the bigger number of those two? $32.54 or $10? What's bigger? $32.54. So what is the credit card company or the bank going to charge you? Cooper, do you want to relax, man? Okay, no? Then do you want to leave? Okay, right on. $32.54 or $10. Minimum payment's going to be what? $32.54. What does that mean? What's the minimum payment mean? That means that's how much money I'm going to have to pay my credit card company or pay the bank in order for my credit card to stay active. With me? What if the 5% of my new balance was only $8.50, something like that? How much is the bank going to take from me? Then they take the $10. Cool? So the minimum payment would be $32.54. Here's another question. All right, let's see if we can do this one again together, and then I'll get you to try this third one on your own. Calculate the minimum payment and the interest on the following credit card. Let's do the interest. Okay, the interest is the principal times the rate times the time. What's the principal in this case? What's the unpaid balance? $98. I'm going to multiply that by the interest rate. What's the interest rate? As a decimal. 0.1875. And the time in this case is 20 days. I have to divide that by 365. What do you get for interest, guys? What's 98 times 0.1875 times 20 divided by 365? $1. And what would I round it to? 1 cent. So I'm only getting charged $1 in interest. That's because the balance is small and the time frame is small. How do I calculate the new balance? So this is step 1. We'll go over here and do step 2. How do I figure out the new balance? What two numbers did I add together? The principal, or the unpaid balance, and the interest. So that's going to be $98 plus $1.01. And what do I get for the new balance? $99.01. When it comes to the minimum payment, I'm going to take 5%. Remember, this is of the new balance. So 5% of the $99.01, or $10. You could probably figure this out. 99 is awful close to 100. What's 5% of 100? It's going to be awful close to $5 or $10. What do you think the bank's going to do in this case? 5% of the new balance. Bank's going to charge you the $10, guys. This is 0.05 times the $99.01. That's $4.95. So what's the bank going to do? Charge you $4.95 or $10? They always pick the greater amount. They're going to make you pay $10 when really you should only pay $4.95. I shouldn't say you should only pay that. There's the fine print. It's 5% or $10, whatever's greater. They're always taking the bigger number. Okay? See if you can do this one on your own. I'll pause the video. So it's $823.50 is your unpaid balance. 21.5% is your annual interest rate, and 12 days is your time. Minutes. First thing I want to do is calculate the interest. It's going to be the principal times the rate times the time. The principal in this case being the unpaid balance. So it's $823.50 times the interest rate as a decimal, 0.2150, multiplied by the time in years. So 12 days is 12 over 365. When I multiply this, 823.5 times 0.215 times 12 divided by 365, I get $5.82. Step 2, the new balance. It's equal to the unpaid balance, or the principal, plus the interest. That's going to give me 823.50 plus 582. That gives me 829.32. Did I do that right? 829.32. Step 3, we're looking for the minimum payment. It's 5% of this or $10. I know that 5% of 800, it's going to be 85, it's going to be $40 and something. So if I go 0.05 times 829.32, I get 0.05, 829.32, $41.47. Which one would you pay? The 5% of the new balance or the $10? What is the bank going to do? The 5%, the 41.47, the $41.47. Cool? Last question. All right, here it is. It says on January 12th, John charges a cash advance. What do we know about cash advances? What do we know about interest in the cash advances? The interest starts immediately, so there's no grace period. So when does the interest start? What day? The day he takes it. What is it? What does a cash advance mean? What did John do on January 12th? That's right. He used his credit card to withdraw money from an ATM. Brilliant. And so starting on January 12th, he was charged interest. So if I'm looking for the interest in this case, what's the principal? How much money did John borrow or take out or withdraw? What's it say? You have it in your notes. Charges a cash advance of what? That's how much he took out. That's the principal. Now, if we read further, what's the interest rate? What's he being charged? Yeah, 18%. Sometimes there's a little difference. There's a fluctuation. They might charge you a higher rate for a cash advance than they do for purchases. Okay, but it doesn't say, there's no difference between cash advances or purchases. What's 18% as a decimal? 0.18. Now, to figure out the time in this case, I actually have to figure out the number of days from January 12th, starting January 12th, all the way up to February what? February 27th. So let's do this. Let's figure out the number of days. If you count the full weeks, let's start there. That's probably the easiest thing to do. Do you agree that this would be 7 days? This would be 14 days. This is my third week. That's 21 days. 28 days. 35 days. 42 days. There's 43 days. And then I have to count these. 44, 45, 46, 47 days total. There's no grace period. He's getting charged interest from the time he takes it out, or the time he withdraws the money. How much interest would he be charged? What's 500 times 0.18 times 47 divided by 365? And is everyone okay with how I got the 47? Counted the full weeks, and then I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more days. What do you get? $11.59. That's how much interest he'd be charged. Might not seem like a whole lot, but again, as those cash advances increase, as time goes on, the interest is going to build up quick. That's the show for today. You can work on number 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, and 8 from the worksheet in front of you.